Hello, this is Dale Matthews. This is Wednesday, and this is Mike.
Hi.
Uh, yeah, you're Mike. This is Wednesday. Yes, I'm Dale. Okay,
Yes.
gotcha. So, what an interesting day it was today at the weekly business
Yes.
session. Mike was there. It was very, very interesting. And we're going to get to Cheryl Walker and what she had to say, and a film that's playing tonight, right now, and what they have to say. But first, we're going to roll the clock back just a little bit, 1 week, and listen to Cheryl. And it's very interesting how many things Cheryl can fit into one long run-on sentence, and you're thinking to yourself, where do I start? So we're going to play back bits of it. She's trying to explain to people why it is that we should all not believe in any future funding for the sheriff. Wait till you hear this logic. It's pretty fascinating. Go ahead, Mike.
I just have one thing to say in regards to a comment that was made in regards to withholding funding from public safety. We have never withheld any funding from public safety for any purpose. In fact, when we had extra money come in last year, we gave it to public safety. In fact, I think we gave $500,000. We gave it all to the sheriff's department.
Okay, so we're going to pause in between these segments. It's interesting to me that she's saying that we've never withheld funding from public safety in the same meeting at which they're withholding funding from public safety.
Yes. Yes. And of course, she would say, we're not withholding it. We're just not giving it to them.
Well, this is the big lie, right? Well, are you going to believe that there's a Saturday Night Live episode? I mentioned this when we first started doing the show, and a wife comes in and she sees that her husband's in bed with one of her friends, right? And a woman, and she said, "Oh, she's very upset." And the husband and the girl, they're fixing stuff up. They're super quiet. They're putting things away. She's getting dressed. She's getting out of the room and everything. And then they smooth down the bed, and then he sits there and he says, "What? Well, you just blah, blah." He says, "Well, no, I wasn't." "Well, I just saw you." No, you didn't. You didn't see anything. There was nothing to be seen. And the end of the scene is she's like, "Oh, well, I'm sorry. Yeah, who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes?"
Yes, that's right. I've seen that one.
So this is a meeting at which the three of them are deciding not to give this funding, which is available. It's definitely available. And it's not coming out of the potholes fund. It's coming out of extra money that came in. We don't want to give it to the sheriff. Why the heck would you not want to give it to the sheriff? There's only one explanation I can come up with. What do you think the explanation is, Mike?
Well, you know what? I mean, I've said this before, and because they're not telling us anything, and we have to go with this because we don't have anything else. And that is essentially that they don't want to do anything to make things better in law enforcement. Because number one, you got to punish the people who voted the levy down. You can't very well have them not vote for the levy and then give them extra public safety. That just wouldn't be right somehow. So, and then the other theory here is, of course, that anything that they do to assist public safety will take pressure off for the next levy push. And that's
started already. It started before the end of this last one.
Yeah.
And even Simon Hare said at the budget meeting, okay, you don't have to be a rocket scientist. He's telling you. He says to Margaret Goodwin, well, I don't think that we should give him the money because this will just confirm the belief that the money was there all along.
Yes. Right.
Yes,
that's right. It will.
It's just going to confirm it.
Yes. Well.
Okay. All right. Next little part of this.
So the urban legend that goes on out there that the Board of Commissioners withholds money from public safety to punish people is absolutely untrue, because we have that as a high priority.
Oh, we were wrong.
It was an urban legend.
It is an urban legend. I stand corrected.
That's all that it is, Mike. She can't connect the dots any more than Simon Hare can. It's got nothing to do with punishment. Just because Keith Heck's, one of Keith Heck's prime advisors, says that's exactly what it's about, it doesn't mean that Keith Heck listens to one of his prime advisors. It doesn't mean that they feel that this is something that ought to be done. Well, certainly they're not saying it in public at a weekly business session, but Cheryl's coming dang close to it. Yeah, well, no, but you should not believe what we say. It's only what we say. No, wait. You should not believe the evidence of your own eyes. No. It's like that saying above the death camp. Work will make you free. It's the big lie.
Yeah.
Play the next part, please.
But we also can't let the rest of county government collapse. We have to have that.
Oh, I love
because,
that. I know that's so short, but I just love that little clip. Explain to everybody, please, Mike, your point of view about if they give this money to the sheriff, how that would make the rest of county government collapse.
Yeah, listen, some guy got up at the weekly business session today and made that same point. You can't do this. If you take that money away from the road department, the roads will fall apart. It's, it would be anarchy.
Wasn't it Larry Ford that said that?
Well, yeah. I mean, Larry doesn't like the idea of using road dollars, but it was some other guy that I can't remember ever seeing before. He may have been there once or twice before, but he got up and said, "No, you can't do this." And it's their favorite line: "You don't want to rob from Peter to pay Paul." Listen, this money is all our money, so you're not robbing from this guy. It's not his money. It doesn't belong to Public Works. It's the people's money. And if the people want it in mass, take the money and put it over there. When Margaret Goodwin came up with the idea of moving $1 million from Public Works over to public safety, they said no, but then, because we can't raid that fund, that's the contingency is there for emergencies. Then $1 million comes from nowhere, and we still can't do anything with it because that money we now need for an emergency. Well, you didn't even know you were going to have that money.
That's a really
last
good point,
week.
Mike. That's such a good point.
And so now, and oh, well, no. And this is why I asked the question today at the weekly business session, how much money would it have to be before you can decide to go, okay, we'll take some of that money and put it over here. How much would it be?
Part of Simon's answer to you was, don't you realize that this really won't do much good?
Yes, because he's looking at the 1 year picture again.
And
yes.
How many times have we said that we even had to say it list once to the sheriff, even to the sheriff? Well, you hire the people for 9 months, or no, they go to school for 9 months and you only got them for 3. Sheriff.
And then they're done. That's it. All done.
But you don't just spend all the money in 1 year. You end up with deputies for 4 guaranteed years. This isn't hard. I got up once. I said, yes, you could get 8 deputies for 1 year, or 8 deputies for 1 year is the same thing as 2 deputies for 4 years. And I said, you've got a mathematician right here, and Arthur O'Hare, the finance director. He's saying it's a bridge to nowhere. But 8 and 1 is the same thing as 4 times 2. What's hard about this?
Yes. No, what's hard about it is they don't want to go there.
Yeah.
They don't want to go there because that's too much like some semblance of a solution. So they don't want anything to do with that because that would have been something that the people came up with, not them. And that's why you're never going to get them to agree to this now, because it wasn't their idea.
Well, also, they don't get the 10% skimmed off the top, do they? They don't get it.
Yeah,
it was never
true.
about that.
I would hope that that's not the motivator on this thing, but you never know. And once again, we have to speculate because we don't know. I'm not a worm inside the brain of Simon Hare.
Well, he's got a worm in there, all right.
Much as I'd love to be.
Right. Okay, yes. Next clip, please.
I guarantee you, if we sent money for public safety, and I agree with Mr. O'Hare's assessment that this is a bridge to nowhere, we already did this once, people.
We already did this once, people. Oh, man.
People.
Such a great quote.
People who
Miss
need
Miss
people.
Casanelli, we are not putting cameras on the backs of chairs today. We already did this once, people. Who the heck talks like that? Really, in
Oh.
politics today? We already did
Well,
this once, people.
it
Everyone's least
in
favorite grandma.
politics, that's funny, Dale. No, a condescending, arrogant, uh, expletive deleteds. That's who does it. Which pretty much sums up everybody in politics for the most part.
You just need this one quote. I mean, there's so many, but we already did this, people.
Yes.
Who do you think you're talking to, Cheryl Walker?
2-year-olds. That's what it is. You know
Yeah.
what? And this describes the relationship that Cheryl has with the populace here. And that is, God, I hate you.
Yes.
You know, I mean, it's just, you know what? You people are so stupid. And I have to, against your own will, do what is best for you. God, you're dumb.
Well, we've many times speculated when she gets upset. She puts her head down. We've mentioned this a couple of times, and she starts scribbling at about 100 miles an hour. What do you think she's writing? She's writing, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you.
Yes. That's pretty accurate.
We play video clips, and we laugh about them. Play the last one of this sponge, please.
We gave the sheriffs, the public safety, I think it was 440 million, excuse me, 435,000 out of the reserve funds for public works because we were going to get somewhere else later. Well, we've had about 3 levies fail since then.
Oh, that was the second to last. Okay,
Yes.
So this tells you what the goal. What do they mean? This is simple to see. What do they mean when they say it's a bridge to nowhere? It's a bridge to nowhere. This isn't going to do any good at all. Why? 2 deputies will not help anybody. I beg to differ.
Well, I can tell you exactly what it means. It means they haven't gotten any new money out of your pocket lately.
That's what it is. It's a bridge to
Yes.
no levy.
Yes, right. Yes, it's a bridge to no levy, and as long as they don't have a jump on a higher level, a permanent higher level of funding, they're not interested.
Well,
Not interested.
So again, what she said was we'd put that money in there because it was supposed to be a bridge. And I've always kind of wondered what bridge? A bridge to yet another levy that we finally understand. You know, interesting, they never said in this last campaign that people are not understanding. I think that they realized that made them look stupid because they kept explaining it to us, okay? So they're not saying that anymore. Now what they're saying is, well, people are irresponsible because they don't want to fund things. No, we're trying to keep it out of the hands of irresponsible people. When we talked with the sheriff, his reaction was, I said, this is very strange, don't you think, that the only people getting up at the weekly business session, which is the only time that we can speak in public, the only people that are, this one time, used to be a lot more, the only people getting up are those who are anti-levy. Why do you think that's happening? And your great friends from before aren't saying a word. And his answer was, gosh, I don't know.
Yes, well, you know, I don't know. You know, I'd like to believe that basically the sheriff is, you know, taking things at face value, and he doesn't see the greater, you know, behind the scene agendas that have to have everything lined up in their favor before they're going to say yes on something. So that's kind of where I think that he's at on
Well,
that.
sure as heck not going to know if you don't want to know, because the math is real simple. 24 people get up and fight and fight and fight and fight week after week after week after week, fight with the commissioners saying, we want funding for the sheriff. We said that, and I told him this when we were there with him. We said that from the beginning, that we wanted funding for you, but we wanted to be sure that you got the money.
Mm-hmm.
Now you got other people, and we said, you know, it kind of seems like they're really only in it for the levy and not for the money for you. Oh, no, we're definitely. So now that you've got this situation where that didn't work out, their favorite solution, they're not interested anymore. They're not interested anymore.
They're completely missing in action at this point.
Why are they not interested anymore? Remember what your prime motivation was, you guys?
Yeah,
I'm telling
that's
you
right.
right now, people. I am not going to
Well,
tell
you
you again.
know,
Yes, you are.
we can't come in there advocating for vacating all the money out of the road department. And I didn't finish what I was going to say about this guy
Oh,
who came in there and was saying that he was talking about how if we take this money out of the road department and give it to the sheriff, all the roads will go to hell. No, they won't. This doesn't even touch the maintenance fund. They will continue to do road maintenance as normal. The maintenance of the roads will not fall off. The roads will not fall into disrepair. It's not going to happen. They just won't have as much money in their reserve fund. And if they took $1 million out of there now, they would just have as much in there as they believed they had 2 weeks ago.
well, look, and there's a criticism to be made. Oh no, not a criticism. Oh, please no, Dale. Of the anti-levy people.
Mm.
You're just not used to winning, are you? I mean, here we've been winning this fight every time it's come up for a decade. We're an unbeaten team. We never lose. Oh, well, we might lose this time. It's probably good to have that attitude. But it doesn't mean you need to get up there and crow your victory. The other side would on this one in particular. Oh, finally, now that we got that permanent tax in, wow, there's nothing but tax from now on. So you win on this, okay? And so part of what we had predicted, all of us had predicted, was that the other side wasn't in it really for the funding for the sheriff, because once this thing is done, you're not going to see him again. Ding. Okay. That given another chance to fund the sheriff in some other way, they won't like that because it's not a levy. Ding.
Yes.
The commissioners wouldn't back anything if it didn't say levy on it. Ding. We're the only ones that are actually saying we want the sheriff to get the money. We just don't want the commissioners to get the money. Ding. We were right on everything. And so, why aren't we saying anything about that?
Well, you just got done giving a 5 ding example.
I'm just dingy today. That's all right. Let Cheryl bring in the final ding, 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 and see what she did. This last part is the best part. Go ahead, Mike.
No one's come up with any plan in spite of our efforts to go out in the community and say, help us, tell us what you want. What would you support? What would you like to see happen? And the answer is always, you figure it out.
No one has said to Cheryl Walker since she was 8 years old, you figure it out. Nobody would let her figure it out. That's my personal opinion. But we're not saying to her, nobody has said to her, you figure it out. This is just
we're telling you, Margaret just told you what her idea was, and it was a good idea. Would have put $1 million into public safety. You don't care about that.
We had, and I mentioned this to the lady from Channel 10 who was there. I don't think she's ever been to one of our meetings. She leaned over and I said, they just said that we're not giving them any other ideas. Now, what happened to the 3.5 hours? This is a long meeting. It's longer than the county commissioners meetings. 3.5 hours of back-to-back ideas from the population. We're asking you, she says, and you're not giving us any ideas. You're saying you figure it out. Well, that's BS, for one. And number two is, what happened to the 3.5 hour meeting? There's nothing but ideas. Well, we ask you for ideas and you don't give us any.
Yeah, but you didn't come up with a levy. See, that was the problem. If you would have come up with a levy, she'd go, ding.
Okay, so the solution to this is not going to please anybody, probably. We're not going to do a levy. Oh, is this a mystery? To whom is this a mystery? Okay, so since that's the most direct way to put money in this person's pocket and the county government, we're not going to do that. So it's probably going to take a little bit, maybe half a dozen different ideas that came in those 3.5 hours. There were more than 6 ideas. Probably going to have to be a combination of all those, because you've got 2 alternatives. 1, use half a dozen halfway good ideas, or 2, give up and die.
Yeah, pretty much.
So,
pretty much.
so what would Mike and I suggest? What would you suggest we should do right from the get-go? If we were commissioners, what would we say to, first of all, make a commitment, no levies, and at least the first term, 4 years, no levies. Doesn't mean that the citizens aren't going to do it, but you could put out an advisory question. Would you like to have a moratorium? It's non-binding on levies. Yes. Okay. Well, there's your feedback, SOS.
And then the very first thing that you would do is go, let's take $1 million out of the road fund and put it over at the sheriff's department.
Thank you. And we're going to declare a moratorium on the ISF funds being skimmed off the top for the commissioners. Not going to need, Simon here won't need to travel all over the country getting almost nothing done, because if he wants to telecommunicate, great. We've spent all that money on that equipment that's in the little back room. Simon, get on the phone, bud. If you want to participate, fine. No more travel. That's going to pay for better public access to things. No more black maps handed out to the population. No more things missing from the agenda. No more secret things added on at the last moment to the agenda. No, not going to do that anymore. It's going to be about serving the people. So she says, people are saying to me, you figured out this is the same Cheryl Walker that told you that people were begging her to not have a voter's pamphlet. These are voices in her head. That's a strong thing to say, but there's nobody that's saying to her, you figure it out. Of course, well, gee, those unreasonable people are saying that. There's no unreasonable person that's saying you figure it out.
That's coming from the same place as all those emails and phone calls that Simon's getting telling him not to do the road dollars thing.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if 100 people, he said that once, doesn't matter if 100 people are in here. I know there are more people that are agreeing with me. Really, yes. Simon? Just exactly where do you get that confirmation, bud?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. But, I mean, this is what happens with the arrogance sometimes. And there are plenty of examples of it.
Just a little bit arrogant. Okay, so now comes our piece of resistance. Or en français, pièce de résistance. You have to say that with kind of a snooty attitude. Okay, so there was a film playing this evening. It's a PBS film. It's part of a series, at least a series of 2 that played on PBS about race relations and bully relations and how to deal with hurt feelings in your community. And it's called Not in Our Town. And actually, most of the details of these are pretty good. The conclusion that Cheryl came up with is a little bit whacked.
Yeah. I mean, it was fine. She's talking about this documentary, and Dale and I have both found it because it's easy to find online. It's on YouTube, and you watch it. Okay, that's great, but then she makes some analogy. Well, it kind of makes me wonder why they're having this thing here, and they're going to have a discussion afterwards. I didn't realize we still had the Klan here, or organized hate group thing. There isn't racism happening here openly that I'm aware of. Perhaps if you know differently, you can correct me. But that seems to be what is implied by this. Anyway, we have a mole, and I can say that now because the thing's probably over. And so we're going to find out what actually took place at this thing and what the discussion was like, and we'll get back with you on that.
Oh, but Mike, is this one of those IT workers that's a little mole that sneaks around and does lesser
No,
services?
This is a big mole. This mole weighs at least 150 pounds.
What are these? Okay, so we're going to we'll put it in context of what Cheryl has said about the film, which is fine. The film is fine. It's interesting. It does remind me a little of some things that are happening on college campuses where, the original intention was, well, let's not make this a friendly place for Nazis. But I went to college and I would listen to all kinds of people, including those, and I tried to say, okay, what are they actually saying? Oh, well, that's crazy. Okay, so I let them speak. Now what's happening on a lot of college campuses is they invite somebody, and then there are people shouting them down. Hey, wait a minute. What happened to the idea of a marketplace of ideas? We have a lot of that in our community. There are people going around stealing this and stopping that. They invite people to come to their meeting of the Republican Party and then try to shout them down. Really? What's up with that? You invited the guy to come and speak and you're shouting him down? Why? At a Republican Party meeting? So listen to Cheryl's taking of this subject and turning it. You'll hear.
Chair,
Yes.
if I might. There's an event going to this evening. Well, they're showing a film, Not in Our Town is the title of the film. It's free, and there'll be a discussion. It's sponsored by the group called Together for Josephine, 6:30 this evening at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship Hall. That's just kitty corner across the street here, 525 Northeast 6th Street. And this is a short film about how a community in Montana came together in the face of fear and polarization, followed by a discussion in regards to our own community, in regards to building relationships with one another and to embrace the idea that there's enough for everyone if we work together. The film itself, Not in Our Town, is a documentary that was actually shown on public television, and it's in regards to this community that is battling hate crimes, and division in regards to issues that are without merit, but nonetheless very serious. And I would like to also highlight this information as to why it's important that we all have the attitude not in our town for prejudice and bigotry and bias. A professor, his name is Ari Perlinger, at the United States Military Academy at West Point, did a study a couple of years ago and published the study. And I'd like to read this excerpt. It's not an excerpt, but an overview here. Despite public anxiety about extremists inspired by Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State, the number of violent plots by such individuals has remained very low. Since 9/11, an average of 9 American extremist Muslims per year have been involved in an average of 6 terrorism-related plots against targets in the United States. Most were disrupted, but the 20 plots that were carried out accounted for 50 fatalities over the past 13 and a half years. In contrast, right-wing extremists averaged 337 attacks per year in the decade after 9/11, causing a total of 254 fatalities, according to the study by Professor Perlinger. He is a professor in the Department of Combating Terrorism at our United States Military Academy. He says the toll has increased since the study was released in 2012. It goes on to talk about different programs that have been addressing the domestic terror issue and the attitudes and positions that have been fueling the hatred and the hate attacks. And I think that that's quite evident by the terrible situation that occurred this past week with the murder of the people in the church in Carolina. So I encourage anyone in the community to go and see this production, this movie tonight, Not in Our Town. So it would heighten our awareness in regards to what actually constitutes hate, how it thrives, and how we can combat that in our own community. So I'm hoping I can make it there myself at 6:30 tonight.
So Mike's going to tell us more about what's in that study because, of course, he did his research. We're journalists. But one other thing that you might want to keep in mind is that when Linda Scott, I think it was, well.
Yeah, Linda Scott.
And
wait a minute.
no,
No,
what was her name?
I forget. She was the Cuffs hate and discontent gal you're talking
Right.
about,
And
right?
what she said was, yes, what she said was that there's a lot of hate in this community. And the guy from Keijo, the host, said, well, yeah, it's just like ISIS. So they're talking about us. See, if you don't back a levy, you're a hate-filled group. And if you don't agree with your government or you question government, as Art Harvey, who's running for re-election, said, you're a moron. And you're also full of hate and hate groups. See, she said, well, there's enough to go around and we can cooperate. Well, Keith Heck has made it very clear what he means by cooperation, agreeing with him.
Enough to go around. Enough what to go around?
Tax money.
Oh, is that what she meant? I didn't know what she meant in there. She said, yeah, there's enough for everybody. Enough what for everybody?
Yeah. It's just paid for that. Enough for everybody is paid for by property owners. That's all.
Oh,
it's a bridge to another levy. Mike, come on.
Okay.
Yeah. Look, and the new terrorists are like it says here, is it true that rural conservatives are the biggest threat to America's security? And in our area, what do you think they're talking about? We're going to find out. But what do you think they're talking about? How this relates to our community? Because of Nazis marching through downtown Grants Pass? No. There are already hate groups, hate-filled groups that are right here, and they're called No New Taxes.
Yes, right. And what we want is responsible government. So, oh my gosh, we are dangerous people.
Well, tried to explain to the sheriff. We tried to explain to the sheriff. Just look right now at the math. Just look at the people who are getting up. Who's advocating for you and who's completely silent? Well, I don't know. You don't know? We're telling you. Well, I don't know what you're telling me. I mean, okay, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I mean, come on, buddy.
Sheriff doesn't talk like that anyway.
I mean, he doesn't talk with a funny accent?
Yes, that's right.
Man.
So anyway.
So Mike, wait till Mike reads you a little bit from this study. Now, we're not talking about this film. Just don't look at this film anymore.
Listen, let's be very, very clear. The film, nothing wrong with the film. I watched the film. I found it to be uplifting, and I'm glad that the community got together and, got to know themselves a little bit more and, ostracize or shame these hater people. It's what you should do, really. But here is what the study that Cheryl cited. This is some of the stuff that's in it. And this is from an article about the study. It says a West Point think tank has issued a paper warning America about far-right groups such as anti-federalist movements, which support civil activism. Civil activism. Are they talking about the same people who marched with Martin Luther King?
No, they're talking about Satan worshipers that question authority.
That question authority. That's right. So, okay. Anti-federalist movement which supports civil activism, individual freedoms, and self-government. Self-government, you mean government of the people, by the people, and for the people? Could you be meaning that? The report issued this week by Combating Terrorism Center at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, New York, is titled Challengers from the Sidelines, Understanding America's Violent Far Right.
Hey, hold on a second, Mike. We're not on the sidelines. We're the perpetual winners on this thing with the levy. We're not the sideline people. We are the champion team. We always win. Go ahead.
Well, here's an interesting thing because a little sidebar. She cited that there were 350 incidents on average per year of right-wing attacks of terrorism. What are they talking about? How come we haven't heard of any of these right-wing attacks? I mean, there would be one, 350. That's nearly one a day. How come we're not hearing about these attacks of these? You know what? Because it's probably some guy who claims to be a conservative has a dispute with his wife, and that's a right-wing hate attack or something. I would love to dig into the numbers and find out what's going on here, because something stinks to high heaven.
Well, or it might be somebody down in the South raises up their stars and bars,
Right?
The Confederate flag. It's a hate attack.
There you go. Cha-ching. Yes, you'd have a little ding going off all the time. Okay, so the center, part of the institution where men and women are molded into Army officers, posted the report Tuesday. It lumps limited government activists with the three movements it identifies as racist, white supremacy movement, anti-federalist movement, and a fundamentalist movement. The West Point Center typically focuses reports on Al-Qaeda and other Islamic extremists attempting to gain power in Asia, the Middle East, and Africa through violence. But its latest study turns inward and paints a broad brush of people it considers far right. It says anti-federalists espouse strong convictions regarding the federal government, believing it to be corrupt and tyrannical, with a natural tendency to intrude on individuals' civil and constitutional rights. Yes.
You mean like the NSA?
I am one of these people. I believe that their natural tendency is to intrude on individuals' civil and constitutional rights. Finally, they support civil activism, individual freedoms, and self-government. Not
individual freedoms. Do you remember that guy that was in front of the Senate committee? And he was from the NSA, and he was testifying. And they said, "Are you collecting information about people's phone?" No.
Yes.
Do you believe that cigarettes cause cancer?
No. Absolutely not. And so it goes on. Extremists in the anti-federalist movement direct most of their violence against the federal government and its proxies in law enforcement. Again, where are all the news reports of these right-wing attacks against the federal government and its proxies in law enforcement? Show me some stories here. I'm sure there are some. There isn't any question that some people on the far right wing do crazy stuff like this. But
there's a liberal bias in the media, and so because there's a liberal bias in the media, they wouldn't do stories about right wing. Well, they would do more stories about right wing.
Yeah, right. Yes, they would. They would. So, okay. The report also draws a link between the mainstream conservative movement and the violent far right.
Wait a minute. Say that again, please.
Okay. This report draws a link between the mainstream conservative movement and the violent far right. And the violent far right, you're talking like there is an army of the people on the far right, and they are, wow, my God, they're violent, and I just don't see any evidence to support that.
And there's a direct link between conservatives and right-wing nutcases?
Yes, because perhaps on some occasions, a right-wing nutcase has been known to listen to maybe Rush Limbaugh, and so too are somebody in the middle of the road conservative line of thinking. So anyway, so here, let me repeat this because there's a punchline. The report also draws a link between the mainstream conservative movement and the violent far right, and describes liberals as future-oriented and conservatives as living in the past.
This comes out of West Point? West Point?
Well, yes, and this is not exactly a secret that the Obama administration has been going into the military and systematically weeding out leaders whose opinions or ideologies they don't care for and replacing them with political drones. And this guy who put this study together is obviously one of those people. Let's see here. While liberal worldviews are future or progressive oriented, conservative perspectives are more past oriented and in general are interested in preserving the status quo, the report says. The far right represents a more extreme version of conservatism, as its political vision usually justified by the aspiration to restore or preserve values and practices that are part of an idealized historical heritage of the nation or ethnic community. Well, if you take the last 2 or 3 words off of that sentence, I'm in total agreement with that. I do want to preserve the country as it was founded and, preserve the values and practices that are part of an idealized historical heritage. Yes, I believe in that. And here, let me sum up here. The report adds, while far-right groups' ideology is designed to exclude minorities and foreigners, the liberal democratic system is designed to emphasize civil rights, minority rights, and the balance of power. The balance of power sounds like you're heading toward a one-party rule there. But anyway, I think to bring this back, this is the kind of stuff that goes through Cheryl's mind as rational. And probably the majority of the constituents in this community probably would paint themselves a little bit more on the conservative side of the spectrum. I don't, you really are 180 degrees out of phase on your tone diagnosis there, Cheryl Walker. Very interesting that she would go that way.
We had this guy in as treasurer, and he was the one that when he was asked, where's the answer to this on the website, he said, I have your picture on my wall, and it's under plastic. This guy was
one of the more creepy things I've ever heard.
And he would come in when I was shooting so that you could see what's happening, and he'd stand right in front of the camera, and I'd say, Mr. Harrelson, John Harrelson, County Treasurer, you're standing in front of the camera. I know I am, and what are you going to do about it? So Sandy Casanelli had gone to him, and she said, what are you doing, John? He says, well, when I was going to school as a kid, I was bullied, and I didn't like it. And Dale Matthews is a bully. By pointing a camera at the meeting, he's a bully. But, John, that's not being a bully. Well, they feel he's a bully. And she said, John, is it possible that you've become the new bully? What you need to do, in my opinion, is you need to look at these commissioners, especially these commissioners and some of the people who are their sycophants. You need to say, almost everything they're saying actually matches with the people who are doing it. For example, hate crimes. Well, it's not a hate crime, but if you call somebody John Harrelson would call me a slimy bastard because I just repeated what he said, and it was on a tape. And he did say it. Okay, so Keith X said, "You're a lying maggot." It was on the tape. It was what he said, and I'm a lying maggot. So which of these two statements, what I said, which was playing back the tape, or what Keith Hicks said as a county official, a public servant, which looks to you like hateful speech? Okay, so when Cheryl Walker says, well, when I pointed out today that Larry Graves at the airport once again is telling a guy, F you and F this and F that and, all this kind of stuff, everything but F your mother. And she says, well, I have a lot of respect for him and I would value him over your continued existence.
Oh, yes, no. And I hope you got a video clip coming from that here at some point, because that was really something else. This was a little juicier, and so it took a little priority, but this I'm assuming is going to drop tomorrow, and it's pretty juicy too.
Doesn't that seem rather hateful to you? I mean, I'm just pointing out the fact that this public servant has done it again. And she supposedly warned him, don't say F you, F this, F that, I want you off this airport. Don't do that. Well, so he does it again. So her reaction is, well, I just, I wish you'd roll up and die. That's not a
Yeah.
very nice thing to say. And isn't that hateful? So who are the hateful people?
Right. No, and you know what? This is
Everybody else is.
this is practiced, nationwide politically, where what you do is you accuse your opponent of doing exactly what you're doing, and you beat him to the punch, and then bingo, you're the winner.
You, Mike Jones, according to Keith Eck, you doctored that videotape to make it look like Keith Eck was saying stupid things. You doctored that videotape. That's a sort of a hateful thing to say, is it not? Today,
Yes, I am Dr. Mike.
Simon Harris says, now I'm surprised that Mr. Matthews comes to so many meetings and he knows what's happening, and he says the direct opposite of, I'm paraphrasing, the direct opposite of what the truth is. Listen, I've got the tape, Simon. Well, the fact that you tried to prove that I said that the sheriff was padding his budget, why, it's disruptive to prove that I was wrong, and it's not showing support for me. Simon, that's a little bit hateful for you to say that, because it's not true. What you said was false. I'm simply pointing out, unemotionally as always, what it was that he was saying, and he finds that unacceptable. Who's the hate monger?